Alright, guys and girls, we're going to do completing the square. So yes, tonight's homework I crossed out a lot of questions, and one of the reasons I crossed those questions out just really has to do with not being able to find a perfect square, I guess, for some of the decimal stuff. It's not that we're not going to do it, we're just not going to do it yet. So I'm saving those for in class when we have time to talk about it. Instead, let's focus on numbers 19, 20, and 24, which I'm going to use as my three examples. Let's start with my very first example, is not any one of these. It's actually what is completing the square. Now remember that to complete the square, it means that you're going to add a number that makes an expression a perfect square trinomial, and I abbreviate it as PST, perfect square trinomial. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is, let's take, for example, x squared plus 6x. What number do I have to add in here in order for me to get a perfect square trinomial? Meaning I can write this as x plus something to the power of 2. So remember, we've talked about this. In order to complete the square, and I'll do this in a red color, to complete the square, you take b divided by 2, and then you square it. In this case, I would take the number 6 divided by 2, that gives me 3, and then I'm going to square that, that gives me 9. So the number to complete the square would be 9. Now, you could do this in your head, but one of the important reasons why I want you to write it out is because this number I am highlighting right now in pink, this 3 right here, is the same number that you would put inside the parentheses. So x squared plus 6x plus 9 is x plus 3 squared. I'm about to erase this, so if you need to pause right now, now would be a good time to pause. Now let's take a look at number 19 as my first example. So number 19 I like to use because it looks different. I have x squared minus 5x minus 1 equals to 4 minus 3x. Now recall that you can only have one b term. So if you have two b terms, you have to somehow consolidate them. So my easiest way to consolidate is to move this negative 3x over to the other side. So what do? I would add 3x, and that gives you x squared minus 2x minus 1 equals to 4. From here, we're going to group off this second part right here. Just the x squared minus 2x. Let's take x squared minus 2x, and let's complete the square. So to complete the square, what number do I have to take? If you said this negative 2, you're correct. You're going to take negative 2, and you're going to divide it by 2. That gives you negative 1. Then you take negative 1, and you square it. That gives you plus 1. So inside this parentheses, I'm going to write x squared minus 2x plus 1, and then write the rest of the equation, minus 1 equals to 4. The other part that you have to make sure of is if I add 1 inside the parentheses on the left. Because this is an equation, I have to add 1 to the number on the right. Now let's rewrite what I'm highlighting in pink right now as a binomial squared. So x squared minus 2x plus 1 can be rewritten as x minus 1 squared. And this minus 1 comes again from this minus 1 right here. So that, if this said plus 3, inside my parentheses, I write a plus 3. If this said minus 15, inside this parentheses, I'd write minus 15. And let's just rewrite the rest. Minus 1 equals to 4 plus 1 is 5. From this point, we solve like we did in section 3-2. Add 1 to both sides. You get 6x minus 1 squared. I'm going to write this back up here. So I have x minus 1 squared equals to 6. From here, I can now use the square root in order to get rid of this square. So I get x minus 1 equals to plus or minus the square root of 6. Break that off into two equations. X minus 1 equals root 6. X minus 1 equals negative root 6. Add 1 to both sides. And then you get x equals to 1 plus the square root of 6, and x equals to 1 minus the square root of 6. If you would like to pause now, go ahead and pause so you can take a look at these notes, because I'm going to move on to the next one. Now, my next question looks a lot easier to me, so let's actually just write it out. I have 20 is 0 equals to x squared minus 6x plus 3. For the sake of making it easier for me to understand and easier for me to rewrite, I'm just going to rewrite this. So I have my x squared plus whatever on the left, and I have my 0 on the right. So I would have x squared minus 6x plus 3 equals to 0. Alright. So again, I am going to parentheses off the x squared minus bx. And then I am going to, on the side, complete the square. So what number would I take? You said negative 6, then you are correct. Take that, divided by 2, that gives you negative 3. With negative 3, square it, and you get plus 9. So the number I need to add inside this parentheses is positive 9. And the number I need to add on the other side of the equation is also positive 9. So I get x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus 3 equals to 0 plus 9. I hope you're okay with what we're doing right now. So just to make a point, this plus 3 just came down here, plus 3. In fact, this entire equation up top, x squared minus 6x plus 3 equals to 0, is the exact same equation down here, except what I did was I added 9 on both sides of the equation. And I add 9 because that's the number I need to complete the square. Okay, so let's rewrite what I have in parentheses. I have x minus 3 squared plus 3 equals to 9. To solve, subtract 3 on both sides. x minus 3 squared equals 9 minus 3, which is 6. So move that up top. X minus 3 squared equals to 6. Take the square root on both sides. Whoa, it froze. Done. Take the square root on both sides. And then you get x minus 3 equals to plus or minus the square root of 6. And again, your two equations are x minus 3 equals to root 6, x minus 3 equals to negative root 6. Add 3 on both sides, and you get x equals 3 plus root 6, and x equals 3 minus root 6. Now for 24, I am not going to complete the entire problem for you. However, what I am going to do is I am going to get you started on it. So for 24, I have x squared plus 10x plus 16 equals to 0. Now remember, the first thing you're going to want to do is to break it off into parentheses, and then on the side, complete the square. Now, remember, the number that you need to complete the square is going to be based on this number 10. So you got 10 divided by 2 equals to 5. 5 squared equals 25. That's the number you're going to use to complete the square. And you will end up with x squared plus 10x plus 25 inside the parentheses plus 16, which has always been outside the parentheses, equals to 0 plus 25. And I'm going to leave the rest of this here for you to do by yourself. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Otherwise, have a very fantastic Labor Day or Veterans Day weekend.